Welcome to Dark Aspects, an ongoing analytical series, shining light on the more mature moments of my favorite Nintendo games. This time, I have an episode that's very special for a number of reasons. It's Mother 3, the game that gave Dark Aspects its name. Perhaps more importantly though, is the fact that at the very least, it'd be a nominee for the category of darkest, non-mature rated game Nintendo has ever published. When compared to its own series, and to use a metaphor, if Mother 1 and Mother 2 are both rickety bridges providing somewhat safe passage across a dark undercurrent, then Mother 3 is a sinking boat you'll have to take instead. So however you choose to cross, you're going to get wet. From the river of course, but mostly from your own tears. Series creator Shigesato Itoi summed up this dichotomy best when he said his games all work at different ages. You can play Mother when you're young. Mother 2 is better when you know a bit more about the world. And then Mother 3 is best played when you're older. Heavy themes like death and human cruelty aren't just implied this time around after all. They're a major part of the core story, told through many diverse characters spread across 8 chapters. This game is a different beast than its predecessors, and because of the sheer volume of topics to discuss, I wasn't sure where to start, but I realized I could easily take a page from the book of Mother 3 and go through the game chronologically, one chapter at a time. And that's exactly what I'll be doing today. This is Dark Aspects of Mother 3, Chapter 1. Night of the Funeral. Let's begin with one of the very first things the player sees, the title screen. Mother 3's logo is a combination of metal and wood, Mr. Itoi describes as mentally unsettling. In an interview with Nintendo Dream, he elaborated by explaining that when things that don't match at all are attached to one another, like a hearse, which has a casket of both metal and wood, it makes you feel a little weird thinking about how they connect. But forcibly coordinating incompatible things, like a wooden table placed in a reinforced concrete building, is just a part of modern living. Feeling this discomfort, while understanding that it makes up this world we all live in, is represented in the logo as the first major theme Mother 3 presents. This concept is further explored in-game by the many enemies you'll encounter throughout the journey. Most of them were once innocent creatures Frankensteined into hostile chimeras as multi-animal and/or machine hybrids. Itoi states that Porky, the antagonist responsible for this madness, is also a symbol of humankind, so he wanted to incorporate these horribly unpleasant things into the logo. Okay, how long are we into the video? We can hit the start button now. All of the Mother games allow you to name the main characters, but this time, you'll get to name the protagonist's family members too. Be warned though, if you choose to name any or all of them after your own family, you'll be in for a real shock, as the first character subject to tragedy is Lucas. Both his mother Hinawa and his twin brother Claus die in front of him at separate points in the story, at the hands of the aforementioned antagonist, along with his army of pig-mask soldiers. Hinawa is savagely murdered by one of their chimera experiments, and Claus sort of becomes one. We'll get to that, believe me, but for now, just know that for most of the game, Lucas's brother is presumed dead, slain by the same monster that killed their mother. Itoi believes there's a depth in attaching a name to something, explaining how it can be a big deal giving your characters names of their own. After all, it's hard to feel a deep emotion behind the words, "What's wrong, Pee-Pee?" When Itoi first heard about the impressions people got from Hinawa's death, what really stood out to him were the players who had named her after their own mothers, and then mentioned how much they appreciate their moms afterward. Female players who named Hinawa after themselves were in for a surprise, especially if they had children of their own. Some of these players reportedly accepted the character's passing with a feeling of warmth. People who are living their own lives to the fullest, says Itoi. My personal experience? Well, I can certainly relate. In my first playthrough, I kept most of the default names, except for Lucas and Claus. I named the twins after myself and my brother respectively. We aren't twins, and we're definitely different in plenty of ways, but we are two sides of the same coin. We grew up in the same environment, and host similar mental afflictions as adults, so I feel that we can help and understand each other completely. I've always loved the option of naming game characters after yourself and the people you know, because it's a kind of immersion that allows you to really step into the shoes of these characters. I think that's so important. I truly believe that reading my name in place of Lucas's during these moments helps me establish an unforgettable connection to his character. The don't care option is always available to you if his story hits a little too close to home. But whatever the case, you'll find yourself with a newfound reverence for this timid kid, especially if you were introduced to Lucas through Super Smash Bros. Brawl and then played Mother 3. That's what happened to me. Believe it or not, Lucas was one of my least played characters when Brawl was the newest entry in that series. But as soon as I finished Lucas's game, I thought I owed it to him to go back through the subspace emissary and beat up Porky to pay my respects. He's been my main fighter ever since. Getting back to Hinawa, her death doesn't take place at the end of the story. It happens about an hour into this first chapter, just enough time to introduce her as a caring mother and an invaluable friend to the citizens of Tazmily Village. She also loves her husband Flint very much, and is last shown sending a letter out to him before making the trek from her father's place beyond the forest with the kids in tow. It's supposed to be a safe walk, but that all changes when pig-like soldiers suddenly set it ablaze overnight. Mass panic ensues back in town, and Flint is recruited for a rescue mission to brave the brush fire and save a family whose home is nestled deep in the woods. Explosives may have started this firestorm, but the pigmasks are keeping it burning, with the first of the chimeras Flint has to face. Literal fireflies as the supposed fusion of a small bug and a cheap lighter. Inside the combusted house is yet another changed critter, a flying mouse with its arms disturbingly swapped out for wings. Upon escaping the wreckage, a now soot-covered duo meets back up with young Fuel's injured father when it miraculously starts to rain, snuffing out the inferno. That's one crisis resolved, but there's still a feeling of apprehension hanging in the air, as Flint's own wife and kids haven't returned yet. Isaac is the first to suggest the worst, mentioning how he thought he could hear screams coming from the mountains. This stomach-churning sentence implies that Isaac heard Hinawa's death throes. The entire town soon gets involved, and after more bad omens, along with another run-in with the pigmasks, revealing their heinous plans to reconstruct all of Tazmily's wildlife, Lucas and Claus are found by the riverside, though it's just the two of them. The revelation that Hinawa was killed is delivered by Tazmily's ironworker, Bronson, in a way that many players deem heartless. But there is a reason for his tactless wording, as there's something different about Tazmily and its residents. Just know that for reasons we'll eventually get to, these people have never known anguish or trauma. Tazmily of the Nowhere Islands is supposed to be a utopia, so Bronson's being entirely literal when he admits he's not sure what to say. None of the villagers have experienced anything like this before, so their innate lack of empathy causes a rift that only grows deeper when they start to judge Flint and Lucas's continued grieving later on. Nevertheless, in this moment, Bronson is clearly hesitant and worked up about how to drop the delicate news, eventually landing on this. I have good news, and I have bad news. Which do you want to hear first? No. Let me start with the good news first. I picked up a giant Drago Fang. It'll make for a great weapon. I figured you could probably use it. As for the bad news, The bad news is, it's where I found the Drago Fang. It was in your... It was pierced through your wife's heart. That final line is so raw, it gives me chills every time I read it. Flint's reaction is less than calm as he grabs a log from the still burning flames and starts swinging in a vengeful frenzy. He attacks any of his peers that come close, felling a few of them until he's knocked out from a blow to the back of the head. Flint is thrown into Tazmili's prison as the first among their people to ever be incarcerated. His eldest son is the first to visit, vowing to get stronger so that he can avenge Hinawa. But behind bars, Flint is powerless to stop him. Lucas tries to go with his brother, but he insists on acting alone. So Lucas, likely feeling too helpless to interfere, must similarly watch Claus leave his side. Claus isn't totally alone though. For better or worse, probably worse, he is assisted along the way by a group of magical human-esque entities known as Magypsies. Perhaps recognizing the psychokinetic potential within the boy, they teach him a powerful psi technique instead of stopping his reckless abandon. Some of the Magypsies in their ensemble are entirely apathetic towards humans, at least at first, showing little concern in the fact that they essentially sent the child to his death. Magypsies live thousands of years, so why should they, or anyone, worry about the comparatively fleeting life of a human? Eolia thinks that having taught him the psi move was an act of goodwill, and while it may have given the boy a fighting chance, the ability was supposed to have been difficult for him to handle, an unmanageable power that likely worked only to strengthen his resolve. Eventually, Flint and his father-in-law get their retribution by scaling the Drago Plateau and taming the mechanized beast. Upon his victory, Flint rebrandishes the weaponized Drago Fang that took his wife's life to prepare a final blow. But before that happens, Alec talks him down when the cyborg's baby enters the fray. Flint lowers his weapon and approaches the mother, but is knocked back, and the lot of them halt to watch a teardrop fall from the Mecha Drago as its labored breathing ceases. Even after being spared, the once friendly creature in all probability dies here. Within the game's data, there exists an unused animation of Flint stabbing with his spear. Now, this could have easily just been meant for an earlier version of the cutscene preceding the boss. Imagine Flint piercing the Drago's hide automatically instead of requiring the player to select it in battle. But it's cool to think of some other possibilities, even if it is purely speculation. So what if the player was given a choice after the monster's defeat? To show mercy or give in to the ultimate revenge? And what if the game tracked all of the player's critical moral decisions throughout the story, affecting its outcome? I thought of these questions because there's plenty of seemingly related cut content. According to the cutting room floor, there exists an unused battle option called Consider. As of now, it seems that its data has been removed, and nothing happens when using the command, so it's anyone's guess as to how it would have functioned. What if it was used to try and make peace with the enemy? Paired with the mysterious kindness stat that is technically present in the final game but left unmentioned and underutilized, I'm led to believe that at one point, player actions mattered a little more. As far as influencing the game's conclusion, additional unused graphics, specifically this text reading happy end, and an animation of what looks like the antagonist dying, could suggest that alternate endings were planned. Theories aside, Chapter 1 ends with the Mother Drago shutting its eyes as the camera pans away and up to reveal an unconscious Claus, face down on the cliffs below. Flint doesn't see his son, who, like the Drago, is probably also dead, but he'll never give up the desperate search. This tale begins as a tragedy. We get to see an old man do a funny dance in the next chapter though. Until then, thank you everyone for joining me to watch this first chapter in Dark Aspects of Mother 3.